organization with a lot of women on the ground giving us feedback about what's going on in their specific countries. And as a organization, we try to provide programs that are relevant and quite specific. And we will be launching a very exciting new project in Colombia, which is working with Women in Science national committees. But what you're here today to think about is another very exciting project that Sena mostly, and with some help from myself and Julia, who's on the line here, set up just last year. Well, maybe 2 years ago it started really, and has already had a great deal of success. So I think I'll just leave that to Sena to say more about. And of course, I can answer any questions about the General Assembly afterwards at any time. So lovely to meet you all, and hope to see you in Bogota.
Thank you, Tanya. So let me just bring up the slides here. All right. Okay. Usual question. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes, ma'am.
great. Fantastic. Okay, so you are here today to get some information on this project that, as Tonya mentioned, is a relatively new thing for OSD. It's only been running since late 2023, so it's really 2 years. It's a pilot project, which means that we are learning something new every few months. And with learning comes improvement and tweaks and changes. So we hope that this next iteration of this project will be the best one yet. And we're very excited that we will be doing this with an institute in Colombia. So I will be speaking for just around 10 minutes or so with a few informative slides. But this is really a place where you can ask questions, try to understand if this is something that is of interest for your institute. You might find that by the end of this, you think, no, 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 I don't want anything to do with this. Or you might think, okay, this is great. And in that case, you might want to ask us more questions and understand how you could apply, how your institute could express their interest. So let me go through some slides. Feel free to interrupt me with questions. I might not see you because I'm sharing screen. So just maybe wave in the camera because I might not see the little hands going up sometimes. Or feel free to just interrupt me if you'd like. Otherwise, we can also have questions at the end of this presentation. Okay, so what is the Wisdom Pilot Project? First of all, I should tell you what WISDOM stands for. It's an acronym. It stands for Women in Science Displacement Outreach Masters. So this is a program that aims to support displaced women scientists from countries around the world who want to pursue a master's program in the country where they are already seeking asylum. So it is not a mobility program. It is not something where we fly people to other places. It is simply a program that supports women who are refugees in specific host countries and who want to study a master's in science. So we are supporting them where they are, and we are looking at basically including these women in national education systems that already exist. So the idea for this program is that we put together scholarships for the students, which is financial support, and I'll tell you a little bit more later. Then the second aspect is institutional capacity building. So for the universities themselves to say, okay, this is what we want to improve in terms of hosting and supporting better displaced women scientists. And then helping the institutes support these women who are, a specific kind of group to network among each other, recognizing that they might have specific needs, different career pathways, and quite different lives altogether. So there's these three components that bring the program together. So we've had iterations so far in Jordan, Turkey, and Uganda, and we're looking very much forward to having Colombia on board next. So ideally, the universities would have either fellows or alumni or national chapters or OSD members affiliated with OSD in order to be a strong candidate. And to be a member, this is not difficult. I think maybe later we can explain how the membership program works. But if you don't have a member right now, I think you can do it before applying, not a problem. So with these three things in mind, let me take you through the key objectives. The first one is what I mentioned before. The idea is that we would like to help the universities enhance their own strengths. And we don't have a recipe for this. We don't have a training program for academic faculty or for administrators. We don't have that. It's quite the opposite. It's more like we want the universities themselves to think and say, okay, we can do this, this, and that quite well. But in terms of supporting refugee scientists, refugee women scientists, we would like to improve this, this, and that. So we would like to organize maybe, I don't know, this kind of training for administrators, these kind of forums for discussion, whatever it is. So it's the university that develops this kind of self-improvement pathway for this very specific kind of work. Ideally, this would be very much focused on being gender responsive, with, of course, the special angle of displacement. Then we have the scholarships element that, as I mentioned earlier, is simply aiming at including in master's programs women who are already there, already on site. And then there's the network building, where we try to help these scholars connect with each other's, with institutions. And this is quite interesting because this will look quite different in every country. So what this looks like in Colombia is very different from what this looks like in Uganda, right? Refugees will have different options legally, for example. They will have different possibility in terms of the cultural norms that exist, in terms of the political context, in terms of many things. So it's about being country specific and ensuring that the university has support to identify these pathways for the students and to bring them together. Okay, so what are you getting yourself into if you decide to work with us? I think this is quite an important thing for you to understand, because you might think, okay, maybe I don't want to. This is it's not the right thing. It is, it's not challenging, I think, in terms of the overall work. It's something that all of your universities will have done in one way or another already, I'm sure, in many different ways. There are some things that are specific to the fact that OSD is a UNESCO program unit. So, for instance, when you see at the bottom there, I'll start with the bottom, it's not the bottom actually. Where is it? The third one. Managing program funds, including disbursement of scholarships and providing transparent financial reporting. So this is the kind of thing that I bring up first because it requires you to nominate an administrative, an administrative focal point. Again, it's not a lot of work, but UNESCO is specific in the requirements that it has. So there is regular reporting on specific deliverables that needs to be done for the project to continue. And so without a dedicated administrative focal person, this cannot be done. It doesn't have to be a full-time person. It can be somebody who works very much part-time, but they have to be on the ball and they have to be the ones who are collecting the various things from the other departments. This cannot be the senior rector, or it cannot be somebody who's so senior that they are. Please, yes, Luisa.
Do we have resources to engage this person, or we have to put it like in a cost share? That's a very important information.
Yes, that's a good question. I mean, we will discuss a bit later what kind of financial package this comes with, but ideally, the entire program revolves around, like, let's say, a big chunk of funds that OSD gives to the partner institute, but there is also the expectation that the partner itself contributes in one way or another. And what exactly that looks like is different based on each country and each institute. Some institutes can provide money. Some institutes can provide space, technical know-how, connections, and all of mentors and all of that. So everything will look different. But so I would say it's it's both ways, but there is absolutely financial support for this as well. So this is the boring part, let's say, the admin part, but it is important because, it's the annoying part. So, might as well bring it up first. And then there's the more interesting work, which is to, of course, make sure that we can identify students for this program, right? So there is an element of, well, first of all, obviously designing the application process in a way that works both in line with, the OSD requirements and the program requirements, but fundamentally one that works for your university. It cannot be something dramatically different from what you do normally, right? So following your own processes. So organizing this kind of applications, doing outreach and working together with us as well in disseminating the opportunity, doing this also through maybe non-traditional networks of refugee organizations, women-led organizations, and whatever we can think of that is relevant in your context. And then organizing a selection committee, an academic selection committee for your program, for your university with OSD together. And occasionally in some countries, we've been able to also include UNHCR representatives who were there as observers and to sort of troubleshoot any questions that went, beyond the remit of the program, but delved maybe more into legal status of applicants or things like that. So that would be an optional thing to discuss. And so this is the whole student enrollment selection and enrollment. Then there will be the work around training. So both the first bullet there in orange about participating in the co-creation process to design these capacity building activities that we mentioned earlier, where your institute says, we want to do this, this, and that, but also engaging in the trainings themselves. So making sure that university faculty attends them, that they're organized in the right time of the right phase of the program, etc. And likewise to support the students with these programs. They might not be training programs, they might be more mentoring programs, there might be academic guidance sessions. What this looks like exactly, it can be discussed later. But broadly, it's these three elements, let's say, managing a program that is administratively quite strict, I think we can say, participating in a co-creation process where you design these institutional things, as well as for the student network building activities, and then actually managing the student intake, right? And managing the students and everything that comes with that, which you will know better than us. Okay. All right. So what is available for the institutes? There is budget for these institutional capacity building needs. So this is about, I think, $10,000. It's not a huge amount, but hopefully this can cover the money that is needed in an environment where you already have, the space and the people and all of that. And about an equal amount, around 10,000 as well, for network building initiatives for the students themselves, right? Which might look more like counseling, advisory sessions, mentoring, maybe career workshops or career offices, if that's something you have, or whatever makes sense in your university. This can be discussed later. In fact, they will be part of any proposal that you submit. And then the scholarships. So the scholarships budget is something that is quite is still to be confirmed. I would say we can expect that it would be at least around $300,000. All right, but the final amount will really depend on the value for the quality of the proposal. I would say not as in value for money, but the value that the university is proposing. So, for instance, one of our partners is giving us a 50% contribution towards the fees, right? Which is, it's amazing. It was way beyond our expectations even. So with that in mind, we were actually able to increase the budget, right? Because that meant that we were able to cover a lot of students, right? So it's just a really ballpark figure, and it's something that we can negotiate together and that we can discuss after you've made your expression of interest. Okay. So the budget is divided more or less into these categories that you see here for the actual for the scholarships. And I'm showing this to you so that you can see that it's quite a generous and comprehensive scholarship. So it covers, apart from the first and the last items are institutional capacity building and network building, right? These two slightly separate items, but everything else is part of the scholarship. So it covers the fees, it covers the living allowance, it covers a personal allowance that we added here to be flexible in recognition that these students are in very challenging circumstances often. There is a residence or visa or refugee status documentation, whatever is needed for different permits to allow people to study legally and with the right paperwork. And then there's medical insurance. Again, what these amounts are exactly will depend on, well, first of all, your expertise, because you will know what these costs will look like. Of course, we also have our own amounts and our own budgets that we develop based on our previous partnerships and previous work in each country. So we will, compare these and contrast them with that. But more or less, it will be you making a proposal to say, okay, this is what we think a reasonable living allowance would be. This is what medical insurance costs where we are, et cetera, et cetera. And so this, again, can form part of the proposal. And then there is one thing that is actually not here, which is a termination allowance, which is sort of an OSD fixed thing that each student that is part of the OSD programs, including the PhD fellowships previously, for example, gets, which is a termination allowance. And it is, I believe, around $300 or something like that, which is given at the very end. So that is the only one that is quite fixed, let's say. Okay, so who are we looking to support in terms of students? These are, we say displaced women, we say refugee women, scientists. Broadly, we mean it will look different in each country. So broadly, it will be anyone who has some sort of official refugee or asylum seeker status. Again, this looks different in each country. Before inception, we hold consultations with the UNHCR office in country that advises us on the specific paperwork, because sometimes it's less straightforward than it looks. So these might be, a UNHCR registration paper, a national government documentation, temporary protection status might be relevant from Colombia, for example, for Venezuelans, etc. So this kind of thing will be decided in consultation with UNHCR and, of course, with your input as well. The students must hold a bachelor's degree in a relevant field, right? They must be good candidates for you if you're going to enroll them, right? They must be nationals of an eligible country. And of course, they must be women, which is not written here, but obviously it's a program for displaced refugee women scientists. Okay, so we're getting towards the end. Why should you partner with us? Maybe you're already convinced, or maybe you're not. We think that the reasons on the screen here are the reasons why you should. We think that you'll be strengthening institutional frameworks for inclusion, so for refugee scientists, but this is beyond, right? We're talking about inclusion in general, I think, as well as a kind of long-term outcome, and gender equity, of course. You will be building networks with other global stakeholders in science, in education, and in displacement. For example, the other institutes that are part of this project, for example, the UNHCR offices, and so on and so forth. And then we think that you'll be really contributing to significant changes in higher education, helping to include such displaced scientists in national education systems, which is a pretty wonderful objective, we think. And finally, how to apply. The initial process is relatively straightforward. You have to send us an expression of interest. This expression of interest is, in essence, a long letter that you address to Dr. Tanya Blowers, our coordinator. In this expression of interest letter, and please no more than 1,000 words, we do not need an essay at this stage. It can be bullet points. In fact, we sometimes find that bullet points are quite specific because we want specific information here, right? So we want to see 4 things primarily. We want to read about your institutional experience working with displaced students, if you have it, or more generally with marginalized students. And how you define marginalized students is up to you. This, again, would look quite different in different contexts. So then we want to see your vision for co-creating these capacity building activities? Do you already have a sense of what sort of things your university would like to do? Again, it's not a lot of money. Keep in mind this kind of 10,000-ish ballpark figure in US dollars. But what kind of things do you think would be needed in your context, in your country, in your city, in your university? And this is for the university. Yes, it's not for the for the students. It's for your own faculty, for your administrators, for your faculty office, all of that. And then, but of course, you can also put ideas there about the student network building activities. The core is focused on the university, but I think for some reason it only says capacity building activities in the university, but I think it should be both. In fact, if you can put both, it will be stronger. So both the university and the students. And then we'd like to see something about how your university has shown commitment to gender responsive and inclusive education practices, or any plans that might be upcoming. Again, if you can make it more specific, it's better. Anyone can write, oh, we endorse gender equality, and no, we want something quite specific, something that will make you stand out against your competitors, right? This is, in fact, it is a competition, right? We wish we could have all the universities on board, but we can't, right? And then the fourth one, which is always the more difficult one to figure out, I think, for our partners, is some initial ideas, with the understanding that this is just an initial expression of interest, right? This can be worked upon, we can discuss it further, but some idea about what kind of contribution your university would make towards the project. And this is really important because it's in the nature of how we've designed this program. And in fact, it's also in the nature of the kind of contract that we've decided to adopt. So we will be using a UNESCO contract that is called Implementation Partnerships Agreement. So it's a partnership agreement. It is not a contract for services. So a contract for services would be, here you go. These are the funds for the scholarship program. Go ahead and implement it. It's not that. In fact, it's a kind of contract that requires a significant contribution from the partner. This can be in-kind contribution or financial contribution, right? Again, what this looks like, you will have these ideas to share with us. I mentioned before some of them. Some universities, I think, well, almost all the universities gave at least some discount in fees, for example, to show that the leadership is committed to this kind of program. And we find that even if it's a very, very small discount, it really is a good way to show that the institute is engaged and committed at the highest levels. But when that is not possible, in certain countries, this is not possible. So there can be other ways that this can be shown, right? So for example, you might develop a program of capacity building for your university staff that is much more expensive than what we can support, for instance, right? So then you go to self-fund a part of it, for instance, right? And likewise for the student network building activities, maybe you have, a huge dream about, doing this whole huge project with these future students, but, our funds won't cover it. But you find ways to cover it from your own budget. And so you show that, okay, OSD is giving 10,000 for this, and we are finding another 10,000 somewhere else to support these activities. Other times it can be specific expertise. So possibly you have some experts in gender or displacement or various things that would be working pro bono on this project, and they might be giving their expertise in many different stages of the program, maybe at the scholarships implementation, maybe in the capacity building level, maybe in a careers. So these are all things to think about on your side. We cannot tell you exactly what they should be, but we can tell you that these are fundamental in the choice of the institute. So as specific as you can, please put this down. You have, 1,000 words should be enough to make a good case, I hope. And of course, this is just an initial expression of interest. So afterwards, we'll have time to discuss it more. And we'd like you to send us these by November the 15th. If you can do so earlier, it is much better, because then we can, if we think that it's worthwhile, we can get on a call with you again and we can tweak it together and we can brainstorm a little bit more. We can have a follow-up call even with everyone if it's needed, and we can, brainstorm things. If we get it on the 15th, we won't have time. So it's up to you whether you can do that earlier or not. And that's it. So this is the email address, which you obviously already have, and you can contact us here. Probably not during the days of the conference in Bogota. I doubt anyone will be replying in those 2-3 days, but beyond that, we will be awaiting your questions. So that's it from my side, and now it's really your turn, I guess, Tonya or Julia, if I forgot anything major, and then our institutes with questions or clarifications, ideas.
I have a couple of things to add, Sena.
Yeah.
Thank you. That was really clear, I think, at least from my side. And I just would like to say, and Julia here might also uh, support me in this idea that we would really welcome you coming to the General Assembly if you're able to in Bogota. Especially we have an event on the Monday evening, which is Monday the 2nd of November, where actually we have a catering company that is run by refugees that is going to be organizing a dinner for the conference. And there we're going to be presenting the Wisdom program, and there will be a couple of the researchers there during the dinner. The researchers is another program that we haven't mentioned right now, but we can talk about that afterwards. So that would be a really great opportunity if you would like to get some more hands-on information and, meet us, ask questions. You would still have time to develop your proposal after that because obviously the deadline is the 15th. Of course, that doesn't mean that it would discriminate against anybody who's not able to come, just to say that that's a possibility. And please do you write to us and we can explain how to register and get you on board. That would be fantastic. So that was my first point. Second point, Sena, just looking at the last slide that you had, I wonder if you might clarify the difference between points 1 and 3. Maybe you can show that afterwards, but I was just thinking about that. And then something we didn't raise here, but I know has come up in the past with our past partners, is English language training, which is a big deal because it may not be the case in Colombia because I know you have a lot of internal displacement, and so it may be that people are speaking in the same language in Spanish, but we find with the other partners that the English language is the common denominator, is the language of science. And so there sometimes needs to be some input on that side, which is something that we can work out together. But that might be something that you could include as your in-kind offer, for example, or an additional service that you could provide would be some English language training, and then that would need to be considered as part of the program. It might need to be added on at the beginning. Again, that's something that we're trying to improve in the past offers, and you know better than us what that looks like from your side. It would be good, I think, just to mention that or consider that. Other things that you might include in kind could be sort of things like careers advice that you might anyway be offering to your students. You might make it additionally easier for people to, have special careers advice clinic for refugees or something like that. Just sort of extend a service that you're already offering and make it more appropriate and welcome people to join it and have a special time when they can come. Something like that. So it doesn't need to be, you don't necessarily need to be investing more time or money, but just sort of advertising something in a different way or extending it in a different way. Sorry, I just have another couple of things to say, and then I know that people have got their hands up. Um, for the outreach side of it, which might not be so obvious right from the beginning, but what we've really noticed, and again, it's a work in progress, is that there's a great deal of prejudice and preconceptions to overcome in dealing with refugees. And the university may not have a strategy for doing that. And there needs also to be sensitivity to other disadvantaged students who may be, feeling also marginalized by the fact that refugees are being considered and they're not being considered. There's a lot of sensitivities to be considered. So, that's just something to bear in mind, that it can cause difficulties and it needs to be quite strategically thought through. Um, and then the final thing I wanted to say was, I think from our side, although it's quite difficult for us to know this from your application, but what has proven to be one of the most important elements for an effective partnership is the liaison person that we are in contact with. We really need somebody who has the time, the commitment, the expertise, and also is able to work with, the decision-making bodies of the university. So needs to have strong links. Otherwise, so many times, they can't go forward because they don't have permission. We get blocked. We need people who respond, very quickly, and there needs to be very much a very free communication between us. So if there's any way in your proposal that you can flag that up, I think that might come back to my initial question, which was what's the difference between 1 and 3, Sena? And 1 was about commitment, and I think you could include in your description of commitment identified people that could give dedicated time to working on this project, that it's not just a kind of additional thing that you're doing in order to bring money to the university, that you have the resources, you do have the time. That's all I wanted to say. Thank you, Sena.
Thank you, Tonya. So just really quickly before we move to our raised hands. So the difference, I'm looking at the slide, I realize it's not very clear, but I think you kind of got it right, Tonya, in the end. Like the difference is number one is institutional experience of working with displaced or marginalized students, as in what have you already done? Maybe you already have, X percentage of enrolled students that are from a displaced background or for other backgrounds that might be disadvantaged in your case. But number 3 is more a commitment to gender responsive and inclusive practices. And we will share the slides later with you. So the commitment is something that goes towards the future. So I think, like Tonya rightly mentioned, for example, that the fact that you will be nominating a person who understands these issues and is able to bring them forward, the fact that maybe your university maybe doesn't have any institutional experience, as in item number 1, but maybe there is a commitment to making a discount or fees. There is a commitment to setting up some kind of mentoring system for these students. So one is like a previous one and one is one looking forward. I think that would be the explanation. But yeah, we will send these slides to you. And now let's go to our raised hands. Or just really quickly, okay, when is the program starting? The program will start in the next academic year of your universities, which you need to tell us exactly when that is. We have a timeline on our side. So, once the expressions of interest are in on the 15th of November, we will review them. We will get back to you with any questions. We might have a follow-up call and we might, discuss a bit more detail. And then we will move before the end of November to identifying the institute that we think will be the chosen one. Sometimes things slow down, but we're hoping that if all goes well with our various units internally as well that we have to deal with, we should have at least an institute that is chosen before the end of the year. And then exactly with a start date, when that is, it will depend on your academic years, which maybe you can tell us when that is. So, okay, let's go over to the hands. Let's start with Juan, and then after that we can go to Christian.
Thank you, Zaina. Thank you very much for the presentation. I would like to have the file, of course, to share with our representative and directives of the University of Los Andes. I would like to have the idea of this program from the student side. I mean, I thought and understood it was a mobility program to host asylum seekers or asylum refugees within our institutions. Now, I understand it is not, but I would like to know from the student side what or which resources and facilities should Colombian universities offer them to be more aware of what would we need in Atuniandes to participate in the program.
Okay, so let's to clarify. So when we say it's not a mobility program, we mean it's not an international mobility program. So there is no flights and there is no relocation of that kind. But it is open to any refugee woman who wants to study a master's program who is already physically in Colombia. So they might be elsewhere in Colombia, for example. They might be able to. The scholarship is quite generous, we hope. So in the case of at least one of our other partner countries, most people actually were not in the city of the university. They ended up moving from our cities around there or refugee camps in the other case. So there is a small mobility, but it's not a mobility in the sense of, okay, I am from Venezuela, I want to go to Colombia and study, and I will move there with this. No, you have to be already on site. So that is but I'm not sure if I answered your question.
No, no, that's a very good,
Yeah.
very good answer because I was thinking during the presentation that what you need from Colombian universities is to provide online training sessions for refugees in other countries.
Oh, right. No. They will be enrolled as
Okay.
full students. Yeah, they're enrolled as full
Okay.
students. The only requirement is that they're already there, basically. Yeah.
Okay.
Or around there. Yeah.
So, and they will have then a scholarship to live here in Colombia, to pay for
Yeah.
tuition fees. Of course, you're looking for a discount in our tuition. Okay, that's something we can arrange. And beyond the discount in the tuition, you need some support from the
Yeah.
staff and faculty for those specific students, right?
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
So they would be admitted in the programs that your university already runs. These would be,
Mhm.
a select number of programs. We have to look at the matching between your programs and the OST programs. So we might find that maybe not all of your scientific programs fit, but usually most of them will fit. And then within
Okay.
those programs, the students can be enrolled just like any other student, basically just with this particular scholarship and with this particular other program and in the backgrounds for capacity building and their network building.
Okay, thank you, Sana. I would like to let Kristen pose his questions while I'm thinking.
Great. Christian, over to you.
Thank you, Juan David, and thank you, Sina, and Tony, and Julia for this presentation, this invitation. We read something and we tried to understand what we could when you sent us the email and from your web page. Talking with the director of our postgraduate office, we think this could be a really good opportunity, not only for our university, but also for the women that has been impacted by these migration issues and also impacted by the war and other kind of difficult situation that could have faced them. We are interested in participating. Actually, we have some experience offering this kind of scholarship that is financed by other institutions. For example, we are one of the 7 universities in the world that has been awarded by the TDR program, which is a special program for research and training in tropical diseases, which is an initiative sponsored by United Nations Development Program and the World Bank, UNICEF, and the WHO. So in specifically for tropical diseases. So we have managed this fund offering scholarships for Latin American students who wants to come here and do a master degree in epidemiology. So I think we can offer that experience. And we also have I mean, we are the second largest public university in Colombia. The 93% of our population comes from the lowest income families. So we have gained a lot of experience in that area. We could also offer our experience on that side, our postgraduate programs. I mean, our postgraduate director have a program for promoting the international mobility. So all our master degree students could apply for some economic support to travel outside of the country. And we also have some scholarship with international partners that could be also initiative for our students from master to vinculate in this international background. So I have some questions. The first question is regarding to the offer, right? Because now the offer for the next semester will close in 1 month. So it's difficult probably to implement if we are awarded. It's difficult to implement that program for the next semester, but could be implemented for the next for the following semester, right? For the 2020 2026 second semester. So is that feasible or no? And the other question is regarding to the budget. I understood that there is 3 lines, 10,000 for the first one, 300,000 probably kind of for the scholarship, which include tuition fees, uh, living cost of living, and all that information. And the tier one, which is also $10,000, I understood. Good.
Yes, so there is 10,000 for the institutional capacity building component. There is 10,000 for the student network building component, and then the bigger chunk for the actual scholarships component.
Okay, perfect. So
Yeah.
the network, sorry, Luisa, the last question. The network building could be not only national but also international. I mean, those funds could be used to support the other, for example, the other money we put from our university to support them to, for example, do an international exchange, to do research international stay outside of the country?
I mean, yes, in theory, yes. I don't know in Colombia the situation in terms of their ability to travel. If these refugee students would be able to travel easily. I think normally that tends to be a big obstacle, but some are able to travel, of course. I think the idea for this budget line is to make sure that the students, because you might have 15 students and each student is in a different department, right? And then they will be very lost from each other. They will not be connected. And we really want to build a cohort of such students in your universities. So the idea is that with this budget line, first and foremost, you bring them together, right? You make sure that they are connected, that they meet regularly, and that you support them in their personal trajectories, personal or career trajectories. So the example that Tonya made, for example, maybe you have a career counseling office and maybe you already use it for your students, right? So maybe you want to organize, I don't know, regular sessions for this particular group of students. Or maybe they use the regular service, but then you have, drop-ins, once a month, all the students meet with one of your staff and they brainstorm together, what works for them, what doesn't. Or it might be that you decide that for one group of students, maybe the international, opportunity is what they need. But the idea is that it's not an individual investment, but more a kind of a group investment for the cohort, let's say. And then what that looks like exactly, we can discuss for sure.
Thank
And
you.
yes, we can share the slides for sure. Okay, let's go over to Luisa.
Thanks, Sena, and also the colleagues. They have very interesting questions. So, my question is regarding the definition of refugees. As Tonya was also saying, we have a lot of internal displacement. So, that counts, right? Like internal displacement, because we have that a lot here in Colombia. And especially people that come from a lot of zones in the country where there was a lot war, right? They come usually to bigger cities such as Barranquilla, Bogota, other cities, right, where there is peace in order to get to study, and have like a regular life, right? So um, for me, it is important to clarify, right? If the what you are expecting could apply with this internal displacement, right? That we have in Colombia, because in Colombia we have also people from Venezuela, and as I was telling, we have. Like another side of our university, which is located in the city of Cucuta, and Cucuta is in the border to Venezuela. So we have a lot of people there, and also teachers that are from Venezuela, right? So we could have some people from Venezuela because of the border situation there, but we also have a lot of people with internal displacement right now that we have in Colombia. So I wanted to ask if that could be a possibility.
Thank you, Luisa. That is indeed a burning question. It's a question that we don't yet have an answer for, and that we are still waiting to meet with UNHCR about, because we consult with them on these kind of decisions. I can tell you that for the other countries that we are working with, so some of them don't have an IDP situation at all, or not a relevant one. Others have a pretty significant one. But in those cases, still, we have not included them in the scope of the program. The program was only for those that are not from that country in itself. So whether this can change, I mean, I understand completely that in Colombia, I think there's one of the largest IDP populations in the whole world, right? So it's a much more relevant question. But this is why also we have these consultative meetings with the institutes, because we really want to hear what you think would work in your context. Whether we can make it happen is a kind of slightly different question that we still have to resolve from our side. But I think it's really good that you bring it up so that we have, something to go
Yes,
with and to try and, yeah.
and we are going to include that in the proposal, because we work with a lot of marginalized peoples, right? That come from small towns in the Caribbean. In those towns, we had a lot of war also, right? So I think this could be a great opportunity for these peoples, right? So we are going to include that the internal displacement, and also some people from Venezuela. Mm.
That's great. Thank you very much. Over to Tonya.
Yeah, thank you, Louisa. In fact, as Senna said, I think this is a work in progress. Um, I what I foresee as being complicated is the definition, as you've already mentioned. I mean, in some sense, dealing with displaced people from outside the country who need to have documentation makes the definition simpler in the sense that, people who have specific documentation can be admitted to the program. I foresee some challenges understanding who can be included and who cannot be included. Maybe from your side, you can provide us with more information that, there may be a specific internally displaced person kind of documentation, or do you see what I mean? Because otherwise there could be all different kinds of ways to unfortunately have to evaluate people's circumstances. And when it becomes a subjective evaluation, then I think we could get into a lot of difficulties. So if there is an objective measure that we could use for this specific program, I think that would be the way forward. Otherwise, yeah. And as Sena said, maybe UNHCR will be aware of that, but I'm sure you also are very aware of all the different legal requirements and entities. Yeah.
Yeah, I think you've put your finger on the main issue. I think that's why we kind of have to see, because I know, as far as I understand, that UNHCR does not necessarily regulate all of the IDP population in Colombia. Like some people are on there's this, what is it, the single registry something, right? Like a list, but I don't know how much of the population of IDPs would be regulated under this, and how we would be managing that. So that's why we have to wait for our UNHCR consultation. But Julia, please.
I think on this point, there is also the element of capacity building and discrimination or obstacles that a foreign student woman might face, and prejudice and so on. So that's another element to consider. Of course, people who've been forcibly displaced inside Colombia, they are facing a lot of challenges, but potentially less stereotype and discrimination, and they have an easier pathways in terms of this on top of the paperwork. So
Yeah. Yeah, I guess the bottom line will be what Tonya mentioned about, how can we identify people clearly? This is not a program where we can spend time evaluating each individual application. For example, even the refugee applicants, they will not be screened based on their protection needs, right? That's why we require them to have a UNHCR documentation, because that work has already been done by the experts, right? And we cannot be entering that domain because it's not our domain. We don't have the capacity, and it should not be our job, right? So for the IDPs, I think that this kind of understanding from UNHCR would be the first step, and then comparing that with the strategy and the feedback that you're giving today, and then we can give you a response. It might not be immediate because we're still trying to connect with our UNHCR partners, but hopefully soon. And hopefully in your own proposal, you don't have to make it specific. You can remain with the term displaced women scientists. And then later on, we can figure out exactly who falls under that category. Right. I see again 2 hands. I don't know who was first.
I think I was first. I just have 2 questions. The first one regarding to this last discussion about displacement women. I mean, we have some requisites to apply for a master program, right? So that one, I mean, the documentation necessary, the the instructions to validate this condition will be given or set up by your institution. So you will tell us you can consider a displacement woman who accomplished this, and these characteristics, and that's only the documentation that will be recognized as a displacement woman. And the second question is regarding, more than a question, is a comment that is regarding to the language. All our master programs are taught in Spanish. We could offer to our postgraduate students a program which is like not an English course, but a path to prepare them for this international language of science, which is English.
Thank you. So the second one was more a comment, right? The first one about, can you repeat your first question? Sorry.
which are the
Oh,
documentation or the
yeah.
characteristics that we will allow to validate
Yeah.
the displacement woman condition?
Yeah.
I don't,
So
sorry,
yes.
I don't know if it's a condition I ignorant in that. So
Oh
I
yeah, no,
sorry.
it's fine. Don't worry. It's fine. Yeah. So yes, we will give a final list of the documentation that is required, and this is what is done in agreement with UNHCR. So there will be a legal paper that candidates will have to have. So it might be refugee status, it might be temporary protection for Venezuelans or whatever you have, right? There's the different categories, and UNHCR will advise us on what these exactly are. Which is why for the internal displacement it's slightly more complicated, because I don't know if the registry that exists, the government, there's a registry, right? I don't know how that works, the mandate of that, are all displaced people in this registry? You know what I mean? The registry. There's a registry of the victims of armed conflict or something. I think it's a government program though, not UNHCR.
Yes, we do have that
So
registry.
yeah,
Mhm.
exactly. So, but yeah, normally we will have a list, so it's very easy. So when you do the eligibility screenings of your applicants, that's the first thing to check, right? Are they a woman? And did they show proof of having any of the documents that we require, A, B, or C? And if they don't, it's easy, and you stop there.
Perfect.
Okay, over to Juan David.
Yeah, my question is very quick. I see in one of the slides that there is a selection made, where are my slides here? A selection during the admissions and registration process. So I understand that any refugee interested in participating within this program has to undergo the regular procedure for admissions at any of our institutions and then ask for the scholarship for these purposes. Am I right?
Yes, exactly. So it's worked slightly differently in each of the previous three universities that we have been working with,
Mhm.
because each of them had slightly different procedures. But yes, in essence, the idea is that you don't create new work. Well, you will create new work partly, but not completely. They apply for the programs you already have. But at the same time, it also depends on the timeline. So
Mhm.
can you tell me, when is your next academic year starting? Not in 1 month, the one after. Is it next year, October?
Our academic year, I think I can speak for all of the institutions he represented, will start it around mid-January, February.
Right. Because, for example, with one of the institutes, we had application first for academics and then admission to the scholarships. With the other two, we
Okay.
didn't have this luxury because we didn't have the time. So we had to do it together. So they had to do it simultaneously. But broadly, yes, do you admit them academically? You do a screening internally, then you
Mhm.
prepare a kind of long list, let's say, where you say, I don't know, okay, 50 people shortlisted for, I don't know, medicine, 150 people shortlisted for chemistry, 3 people shortlisted for biology. And then we say, okay, it's a bit too many candidates. Maybe don't send us 400, let's make it shorter. So maybe we say, okay, at least maybe 5 or 10 per discipline. And then you internally, you screen them for quality. And then
Mhm.
after that, we together have a selection committee to narrow it down to the last candidates. And this might be based also on other considerations, right? But
Mhm.
again, this might also depend on exactly what it looks like in your country and the timeline that we have. But yeah, the final selection will be together, but you are doing your own academic, we would never think to tell you which students to enroll in your universities, right? Like you make that choice, and then we can just tell you which ones can get the scholarship. But even that, we want to decide it together. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Right. Sure. Tonya?
Yeah, I just wanted to add on about the selection process, actually, just to say that so I don't know if it's clear that the disciplines are in STEM disciplines, but we can look at that together to identify which of your programs, can fall under that heading, and we could have some flexibility there, especially maybe if you do have a course that's in something to do with women's science and development, for example, or something like that, that might be something that could be included. But so there is a little bit of flexibility, but the idea is that women would apply, we would look through the possibly eligible programs together, and then they would go through the usual process, but as Sena explained, they flag up that they are applying through the other program. And also just to answer Louisa's question that she's put in about is there a specific number of people we must cover at a minimum, or is it flexible? And Sena may have more to say here, but it's a again, this is all a work in progress, and it's not just quantity, of course, it's also quality, but uh, there, the way that the scholarship is divided up financially, there is a cost of living cost, right? Which will probably be very similar across your universities. There may be, though, and this could even be a sort of in-kind possibility if there is on-site accommodation that can be provided, something that might be safer, or, these are considerations that can come in terms of the living allowance. The cost of tuition, as Sena said, could be offset by a contribution from the university. But there's, the cost of a fellowship, I guess also you would need to decide the level of the school, but it would make sense that it's comparable to other fellowships you have. It doesn't need to be a luxury fellowship, or, it can just be in line with your other fellowships. If you do a quick calculation, for example, 300,000 obviously divided by 20 comes out as 15,000, but this is over 2 years, right? So then you've got a ballpark figure of 7,000 if you're going to have 20 fellows. But uh, these are things for you to work out. You may feel that you don't want to have 20. That might be a big number to deal with, or you want to have less. And those are all questions that you can determine yourselves and justify, and we will take into account. Obviously, we are looking for value for money. At the same time, we're looking for programs and a situation that will really work in favor of these women in their very specific needs.
Thank you, Tonya. I see that Juan David was having to leave because he has another meeting, and I think, yeah, we're all already over time, but hopefully we've had a good chance to brainstorm a little bit. I also see he writes, please bear in mind that Monday, November 3rd is a bank holiday in Colombia. So you know that. And yeah, any final burning questions? Or shall we, we're also happy to answer